KRX look completely lost right now. Constant roster changes, no clear identity, and people are even saying that they won't make partnership next year. In this video, we're going to go over why they've been underperforming, where they were last year, and how they can get back to it, and why their 2027 partnership chances are in jeopardy. So KRX right now have been running the triple duelist. They went 1-1, and then they completely scrapped it and decided to go back to double duelist, which has been, the meta in which all the teams are playing. Though they lost to Paper X, which now leads them to 1-2, they are kind of on the brink of make it or break it. Either they make champs and make a huge run, considering they don't have that much championship points. They didn't make it international, and it seems very unlikely unless they have, another huge bottle of lightning moment where they just go and flat out the competition through Pacific and make it all the way to champs. That seems unlikely, and so things seem very glum. Right off the bat, one thing that draws a lot of headlines to KRX is the constant roster changes. At first, their magical run in champs was led by Flashback. They're running the double duelist with Yoru and Waylay, which was led by Hyunmin and Flashback. And during that time, it seemed like Sky was the limit. But as we go over to the time and look at the timeline, Flashback eventually retires, and then that leads to Hermes entering the roster. They go through kickoff, they have some mediocre results, they end up making top 6, but not enough to make it into an international. And then goes on to stage 1. Yang was a highlight of stage 1. That it seemed like adding him on seemed like they're about to reach that potential run that they were on last year, but that was quickly spoiled after a fantastic group stage into another dud in playoffs in Pacific. And it seems like that is the gatekeeper of this year. A lot of what KRX hasn't done is make it international. And though they've been competitive in Pacific, they just haven't finally picked up the thing, the meta, the player. And it seems like something to one trick, because that's what happened in champs. And so finally stage 2 started, and KRX kicked it off with a bang, controversially. Triple duelist, which is something we would expect out of Paper X, but that isn't even the case. Even Paper X isn't ballsy enough to be able to run a triple duelist comp, even though they've already made champs. And KRX, while their spot is still in jeopardy, and it's pretty much lottery odds of them being able to make it, they decide to run it. And it seems like, okay, they end up winning their first series against DFM, but DFM are caught off by surprise, and that is maybe just a one-off thing. They end up losing a secret, or running the triple duelist again, and then they go into Paper X completely scrapping it. And though they scrap it and go into meta comps, it just seems like they're kind of pulling on strings. They made a gamble and it didn't really pay off, and now they don't look good. They look pretty stupid, if we're blunt about it. So one thing I want to point out is the root of these causes. It just seems like the management or the coaches just are constantly looking for that one thing that, the comp or the player. It seems like there's always a fifth man in rotation. It seems like KRX have the core of Hyunmin, Mako, and Freeing, and then also Bane as the IGL. But it seems like the more established core, or that's at least the duo core, that isn't interchangeable, is Mako and Hyunmin. And with that said, there isn't really an identity that KRX has formed throughout this year, because in champs, it seemed like they were ahead of the meta. They were constantly running over teams, basically the teams that ended up making top 2. And so let's actually dive into a little bit more about their champs run and which made them a potential threat to be, one of the top teams in Pacific. But as of 2026, that isn't the case. So throughout their 2025 champs run, they innovated. At the very beginning of the group stage, they decided that we're going to run Yoru Waylay. And from that, they decided to pick that exact comp on all the maps they run. And they were able to be so flexible and innovative that they constantly were able to beat all of the competition except for the teams that basically made top 2, which is Fnatic and Paper X. And so if we look at the results, we look at KRX's results, they beat a Liquid, they lose to Gen.G, which was top 2 team. They beat Liquid again, they go on to play Fnatic in playoffs, and they end up losing to Fnatic. From there, they play a G2 at MIBR and Paper X. And it just seems like they're growing in momentum, and they finally make it into a top 3 position after being stuck in 5th, 6th. And from here, it seems like, oh, DRX are on a championship run, and until they get run into a Fnatic that seems primed to finally be able to make and win a champs trophy, but they eventually lose to Gen.G. So from there, the expectations are DRX are top 3 team in the world, and if they keep the roster, they're going to keep the momentum. They're going to continue to grow. They're basically in competition between Paper X as one of the top teams in Pacific and one of the top teams in the world. But however, that isn't the case. And as we see, as I previously stated, KRX have been pretty mediocre. And it's fair to say that their results and their consistency has been, sought after and has been wanted by other teams and has been admired by the fans. But overall, it just seems like compared to other teams in Pacific that have been, actually have been winning trophies like a T1, a Paper X, and an auction, it seems like their spot might be in jeopardy for 2027. Which brings up my last point. KRX chances of being able to stay as a partnership team is in jeopardy due to the fact that there's a bunch of Korean orgs. We can name them T1, Gen.G, Nongshim, and KRX. To the fact there's only 8 spots, there's a limited list due to Pacific wanting a lot of representation within, a huge region. There's teams in Korea, there's teams in SEA, there's teams in Japan, there's teams in Vietnam, there's teams in the Philippines. And so there's very limited spots for teams that have been represented and have been platformed in Valorant. In this instance, KRX seems like their spot may be in jeopardy. We have to look at it from a realistic sense. There's only 8 spots. And if I were to name the list that I think is the most realistic, we have to think about it region-based. And there's most likely going to be 2 Korean orgs, 2 Japanese orgs, Paper X, which represents Singapore, RQ, which represents Indonesia, Full Sense that represents Thailand, and either a team from Vietnam or the Philippines, in the sense, maybe a Team Secret, which they haven't been underperforming, but I think what Pacific wants is representation. This is 4 Korean orgs in VCT. I think the most likely candidates are T1 and either Nongshim or Gen.G. Gen.G, due to the fact that they've historically have had really good results. Comparatively to a DRX that hasn't lifted an international trophy, Gen.G has. Everybody knows the historic Gen.G run where they look pretty much unstoppable for a whole year straight, then their core abandoned themselves. But the history is still there. They still have a trophy to carry, whereas DRX doesn't have the same. And then controversially, I think Nongshim is up there. They're either second or third, and T1 is the first spot. Nongshim have won Masters London, and if they make champs, I firmly believe that I think they're head-to-head with Gen.G, especially if Nongshim make a champs and have really good results, then I think it is even compared to an org like DRX. And then quickly for the 2 Japanese orgs, most likely it's going to be a team that's already in VCT, either DFM or Zeta. I think personally it might be Zeta or Vero, considering that DFM have been there since the beginning of partnership and haven't had that much good results. But if Vero end up making champs as one of the teams, then I think that they have a good opportunity, even though they're technically Korean players under a Japanese org. Vero, Zeta, and then either one of the challenger teams, because there is a lot of competitive Japanese challenger teams. However, it just seems like a lot of the talent is fueled there, and there's limited spots for teams that are in tier 1. But if we look at the teams for Japan real quick, we have teams like Fennel, Roto Order, and the challengers team that is going to play in play-ins, which is QTDIG. And the second place thing that they lost to is Reject. And so there's a lot of names in Japanese Valorant that could take those spots, to clarify. So that's where KRX stands right now. Again, they're sitting 1 and 2. They're on the lower end of their group. They have to eventually make a run because they're less than likely to be able to qualify straight through playoffs. They have to make a run to be able to make it into champs. And if they make it into champs, have good results, maybe they can take a one up on these other Korean orgs. But more than likely, they are sitting on a bridge, and that bridge is pretty much falling down all around them. You have a T1, a Gen.G, and a Nongshim that has lifted an international trophy, while DRX is the little brother just waiting for the moment to be able to come. Let me know what you think. This has been something that I've been thinking about, just because DRX is such an entertaining team, and it'd be such a shame for this team to be able to kind of just fizzle out, because we see the potential. We all root for the team that's been led by Maka, the only member from the former DRX core that hasn't lifted an international trophy. It'd be such a shame for them to fizzle out as the year goes on, and who knows where the players go at the end of the year. Made it to the end of this video. I really appreciate it. I'm doing a lot more of this content where I generally just sit down, speak on teams, speak on the game, and also do predictions and really build this community, just because I feel like it's so inclusive and really important and really entertaining. Such a great sport to be around and be a part of the scene.